like of a lot of the people I've chatted with, you were involved in the shows or you're friends with them, and so it's just so crazy how, like, when are you just gonna not do stuff and take it easy? That's what I'm trying to say.
When I'm dead.
Okay, you know what? That's fair. That's fair.
No, it's just always fun collaborating with people. I'm just a person who likes watching stuff and wishing I was a part of it. Like even before I was doing things with Rooster Teeth and Achievement Hunter, like I was watching them and be like, it would be so cool to be a part of it.
Welcome, everybody, to Casting for Two, the podcast, as always, hosted by me, Chris. Welcome, everybody, to episode number 776. Fantastic episode for you all today. The second episode of my RTX 2022 coverage in Austin, Texas. And fantastic guests. Of course, if you like what you're listening to, I'm available on every podcast service. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter, both at Casting42. But my guest today is a phenomenal individual who is just such a hard worker, working hard, collaborating with so many people. He's in everything. He really is in everything. If you're in bed, look to your left or your right, he will be there. Ify Nwadiwe is here on the podcast, and just such a fun chat, a fun individual, a man, there's this thing that Ify has some of the best hugs that you will ever experience, and I got to experience one, and it is in fact true. All right. But I'm done talking because we need to get into this episode, and Ify, again, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. And I'm done talking. All right. So everybody sit back, relax, and Ify, take it away. Hello, sir.
How y'all doing?
You good in yourself?
I'm good.
Oh my gosh.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. I'm Zach.
Ify, nice to meet you.
Pull up a seat.
All right,
pull up a mic.
chair. All right.
Pull up everything.
Mm-hmm.
Pull up and everything.
Yeah,
How's-
pulled all the way up. Pulled up to the max.
There we go.
Yes.
How's it going? How's your RTX going so far?
Good. So far, so good.
Yeah.
You know, really chill. Did AHW. Did
Yes.
like 15 minutes of Prim's, hood movie review, his podcast, which he was doing Moonwalker, which I was glad I got to do a piece of. Because that was what I grew up on. And then he brought the Michael Jackson impersonator, Michael Trapson.
Okay, yes, nice.
And then he showed up, but he wasn't like in costume, and I could tell like Prim might be like, all right, well, I was hoping that you'd do it, but either way, it seemed like it was fun, good time.
Yeah, Joe Pesci was the villain in that.
Oh yeah,
right.
Mm-hmm.
That's just
because it had that weird mob storyline halfway through the movie.
Yeah,
and the first half is just back-to-back music videos, concert clips, and then they were like, "Oh, maybe we should add a plot," and then they did.
Maybe, who knows? Yeah. It's that movie, and he did a Disney one, or is that the same thing?
Are you thinking about Captain EO? That was at Disneyland, and it was a 3D ride, which was replaced by Honey, I Shrunk the Audience.
Oh, okay.
Something I know because when I worked at Disneyland, I worked Honey, I Shrunk the Audience and Astro Orbiter. So I didn't, and when I remember during the orientation, they're like, and we still have the movie canisters from Captain EO, and I was like, oh, so y'all can air it again when he dies. And they were like, no. And so when he died, they aired it again.
It's because of you.
Maybe I know. I never considered that. Maybe I put that thought in their head.
It's like that. Those two projects to me, I saw them when I was a kid. Like they felt like one long thing to me.
Oh yeah.
And then VH1 would randomly show
Moonwalker.
Yeah. And then of course there was the game and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But I don't know why the Chris Tucker music video also popped in my head.
Oh yeah, because
yeah.
Chris Tucker was a huge fan of Michael Jackson. I remember that was one thing I remember. There's two things I remember about Chris Tucker: him being a huge fan of Michael Jackson, and him walking away from the Friday series because he found God. You know?
Yes, yeah.
You know, God has taken away a lot of our biggest, stars.
Yes.
Took away Malice from the Clips, Mace from Bad Boy, Chris Tucker from the Friday movies.
Yeah, you know what? If there's one thing we can spread awareness to, I'm glad it's that.
Yeah.
Also, I was talking with my friends about Chris Tucker. Like, makes two Rush Hour movies and is good for years.
Well, that's the thing is, like, if you just live normally, you can do like a movie or two and be good for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Especially if ones that are hits like Rush Hour. Like once you like join the union and you see the way things are paid out, you're like, oh, this is how people live off stuff.
Right.
Yeah, when I did it at midnight, when I was writing for it, because it aired twice, we were owed like residuals for the second airing. So, and if you think of like residuals for a show that like airs nightly, it's wild.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, a long time ago, I interviewed Ali
Gertz?
Yeah, who worked on, and it's okay. So kind of to backtrack, I was chatting with some friends yesterday, and I'm like, who do you want to talk to? I was like, I hope I talk to Ify. And they all went nuts because they were just like, he's been involved in so much, and he's done this, and he's done this, and I had no idea he did that. And I was just saying, I have, like, of a lot of the people I've chatted with, you were involved in the shows, or you're friends with them. And so it's just so crazy how, like, when are you just going to not do stuff and take it easy? That's what I'm trying to say.
When I'm dead.
Okay, you know what? That's fair. That's fair.
No, it's just always fun collaborating with people. I'm just a person who likes watching stuff and wishing I was a part of it. Like even before I was doing things with Rooster Teeth and Achievement Hunter, like I was watching them and be like, they would be so cool to be a part of it. And like even like, I remember way back when, the old heads will remember RTES, which was shot in LA.
Yeah.
And when Colton told me about it, like I was, well, even if we go back a little bit before that, when he did Laser Team, I was like, oh, you're doing stuff with those folks. Oh man. And so, when he had me on RTES, I was like, what? This is wild.
Yeah.
And then, funny enough, 2019, when we were all last here, I was here with Multiplayer and Tigtone, and just and that's when me and Fiona first met, and I was like, we gotta do some stuff. And then, effing around happened.
And then boom. And, but it's just been so great seeing you again, just pop up in just many things that are just, they're separate, but they're all in the same world, like, G4, I know.
Oh,
there's a lot of, roots with that, but now, and of course, video games, working on Apex and stuff like that. Like, it's just like the things that you are manifesting, it's truly remarkable. Yeah. And you're also a dad. That's all that, like, that's also an accomplishment there.
Yeah. It's been fun, kind of balancing it. I think the, 5,000 IQ play I made was making my daughter's elementary school across the street from my house.
Oh, okay.
So that cut down one commute easy. I was like, bet, I'm just going to walk you across the street, and daddy's going to get in these streets to do comedy. But it is like I am even surprised, but like the simplistic thing of it was, I started out just basically doing like funny stuff in comedy, have always been a nerd. And so when, it just was like, okay, we need a funny nerd, let's do it. And then it's the beautiful thing of like, doing something with these folks and getting asked to come by, and now it's like evolving into a fun thing where it's like, okay, now we're doing TV shows about video games. He was a like noted funny nerd who also has TV writing experience.
Right. And you're just
I get to raise my hand.
No.
And go, you rang.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I was just watching Little Giants the other day.
Oh yeah.
Anyway.
Wow. Yeah, that was I need to rewatch it because I would watch so much Little Giants.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would you say that all your comedy is based off Little Giants?
Yeah, I'd say there's a strong, if really, less Little Giants and more Why am I forgetting his name? He's the dad in Little Giants.
Rick Moranis or
Rick,
Ed O'Neill?
yeah, Rick Moranis. I got
Okay,
a
yeah.
strong Rick Moranis base because I launched from that, Honey I Shrunk the Kid,
Yep.
and then I was working on Honey I Shrunk the Audience.
Yes.
I was one of the scientists who like gives you the lowdown before you watch this 4D film.
Oh, did you say any like science jargon or?
Well, see, that was why I loved it. So basically, the rules for Honey I Shrunk the Audience when
Yeah.
you are giving the kind of like pre-show talk is you just have to hit these points,
Oh, okay.
but you can get to it however you want.
Gotcha.
So you can like pack it with jokes. You can like be hyper immersive. And I, of course, was the one who was like, I'm gonna pack it with jokes and be goofy. And,
Right.
And people would love it. And that was like kind of like one of the ways I was just being goofy before I was really, doing all the stuff, is just like making the most of that.
And I'm sure that, like, doing that, obviously flexing your comedy brain, but also not keeping it fresh for you.
Oh yes, 100%.
Yeah.
It just made it fun, and because they would cycle you, so you were either letting people in on the front, and you were just kind of counting, and then once you had enough, you would hold, and then the next thing you would do is the pre-show chat, and then the next thing you would do is you would be the person who were collecting the 3D goggles. So yeah, at the front you were giving 3D goggles and counting. At the end you get the 3D goggles, and then the final one, and that one is done with two folks because between shows one is running them back to wash the goggles and bring some fresh goggles to the front.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know why we went into how that system
No,
worked.
no, it's fine. No, but it leads me on to my next question. Is there like an adult section on at Disneyland, like a bar area? Like, I've heard many stories.
You might be thinking of like, I think it's called Club 52.
Some just like there's a bar where people get, or older people obviously just get drunk and. I don't know.
So I don't know if it changed. It might have changed with Star Wars Land.
Oh, okay.
But while I was working there, the only place in Club 33, I think is what it's called. The only place in Disneyland that sold alcohol was Club 33, which was the pizzazz of it. If you really, really, really want to go, you can like go into the Disneyland kind of like forums and stuff, ingratiate yourself, make some friends, and every now and then they will raffle off taking people to Club 33.
Oh, okay.
Or you can like, I'm sure someone on Craigslist is
right, yeah.
But
just send feet pics.
yeah, and that's when I knew it was like pretty like exclusive, because when I was at midnight, Chris Hardwick couldn't even get on the he wanted to get in it, and they were like, you got to be on the waiting list. It doesn't matter how famous you, and he was that guy. He was like the world's most famous nerd at the time, and even Disney was like, nah, bro.
Would they say no to The Rock?
I think no. I think The Rock. I feel like when you're like Dwayne The Rock Johnson, I think they'd be afraid to.
Yes.
Or maybe because he's doing DC stuff, they'd say no.
Nah,
I feel like Chris. I feel like Chris Pratt can say ask, and they get.
That's true.
I know, because there's like a fun thing where like when you're in like the Disney quote unquote family, like you're one of their like headliner stars, you get they'll hook you up.
Yeah.
And then there's the plaids, which is guest services, which are kind of like essentially like the Kick-Ass Guardians here at RTX, but for Disneyland. And you knew how famous someone was based on how many plaids they had with them.
Okay.
Because like if they would just give you more for some reason. And now in retrospect, because I mentioned this to someone, I was like, oh, that might have just been a code for us. Where like if you're working a ride and you see 5 plaids with someone, you're like, oh, let me help them through this ride because they must be more famous.
Okay.
Yeah.
I find Disney, like the Disney culture, so fascinating because I'm just so out of it. Like I just don't. Like I might.
I really like. There's very few things on an administrative level that I like about Disney. But one of the things I do like is that their philosophy for their parks is phenomenal because it's all about keeping the magic, and that's really how they got me hooked. Like a lot of people who work at Disneyland are about that life.
Right.
And I'll tell you, after I explain this, I'll tell you exactly when I got sapped out of that life.
Okay.
But
Perfect.
But like, yeah, they make a really, in your orientation, they make a really big thing about keeping the magic, kind of like how just the imagination of kids, how they kind of use that to make it the happiest place on earth, which is why if you try to, when the Imagineers are building rides around Disneyland, they are factoring in what you can see. So, this doesn't really apply for Disney World as much because they have such a large compound, but Disneyland is in Anaheim. So after a certain height, you can look over the parks and see outside. They don't want that to happen. They want you to be in Disneyland.
You're in it.
So when it was the Super Bowl, for example, they would say, like, we couldn't answer if people were asking us scores. And we couldn't ask about scores because you're not supposed to think about the outside world while you're in Disneyland. So it was really cool and obviously very clicky. Anyone you talk to who has worked at Disneyland will talk about it. Like, if you were a character, a face character, you were like top of the food chain.
Right.
You were so cool. You wouldn't dare sit at a table with princesses at lunch. Like you wouldn't dare. And then how cool your ride is the next tier. So like I worked in Tomorrowland. Space Mountain were the cool kids because that's the coolest ride there. And then, as you would imagine, Astro Orbiter and Honey, I Shrunk the Audience was very low on that totem pole. And then you had the leads of certain areas, and they would wear these black trench coats.
There we go.
Trench coaches. Trench coats. And they would just walk around. But when, in retrospect, I could see why it just went left. Because think of kids in their early and mid-20s getting that much power over other people in their early and mid-20s. It's very clicky. People were always sucking up. It's real, just spicy. And then the moment I lost the magic was when I got my first full-time job and was making like 5 times as much as I was making. And I'm talking about 5 times as more than the leads. So like when they would try and do their snooty, clicky things, I'd be like, I'm here for the free pass, because that's what happened. Is I would keep a shift where I worked 1, so I can keep getting into the park for free. And so like they would try and do their snooty stuff, and I could feel them notice their power wane. Oh, it's like, not anymore. I have a big boy job now.
But I will ride the Dumbo ride.
But I'm not too big to want to come here to ride Dumbo and eat those weird cone nachos at the Cars Land.
Well, so I mean, just kind of going back to this, I mean, the way that it's structured and the individuals that go through it, obviously you're saying there's a level of commitment that they have to have. Was that something that prepared you for the outside world, whether it was like going to acting or getting into comedy, just like being able to commit like that?
Well, since my senior year of high school, I've been doing improv and acting stuff, and that's when I kind of had the bug. And I was still in it, but that's actually before I stopped for a bit. So when I got that full-time job, I slowly assimilated into just doing that, and then I was going to school at nights, and I was also doing improv on the weekends. But we were just doing our shows. It just became just a regular cycle. I would go to work during the week. I'd do improv on the weekends. I'd go to school after work. And I was just doing it. I didn't really have a plan. I wasn't doing, at that time I was just doing improv to do it. I didn't fathom that I can build my way towards the career, and acting was so behind me because I was just trying to make my way through college because it was just taking so long at this point. Especially because when I started going at nights, it cut down how many units I could take. And then I started dating someone, and she was in a production of Little Shop of Horrors.
Oh, okay.
And I went to go watch her, and I was watching her on stage, and she was killing it, and I was just kind of blown away. And then it hit me, and I was like, oh, this is what my passion is. This is what I've wanted to do. This is what I was trying to do. And then I got caught up in the fray, and that was perfectly timed because my buddy Matt Apodaca started taking UCB classes and he was listening to WTF by Mark Maron. He was like, you got to listen to the Donald Glover episode. It's really good. And I listened to it, and there's this line in there because at the time I was like doing improv in Orange County, and I felt like I was the biggest thing, like I was, big fish, small pond.
Yeah.
And he was like, there's not that many black people in improv. And he was talking about LA.
Yeah.
He said in improv, and then he's like listing people. And even though I knew he didn't know me and I didn't know him, I was like still kind of like half expecting that maybe he heard of this black guy killing it in Orange County. Like maybe the word got down to him. And when I didn't hear my name, I was like, oh, that's where I need to be. And I signed up for UCB classes. And I was just looking at it because I recently like redid my Instagram. And so I had to like archive each post by hand. And like I was able to take that opportunity to time how because back then it felt like forever because you're in it. But like looking back, I went to UCB. By the end of the program and the year, I quit my full-time job and started pursuing acting. And that was just like, and then like I think I want to say 3 or 4 years later is when I ended up started just getting paid to do things. And I'd say maybe 5 or 6 years later is when I had my first TV writing job. So it really just like dove all in and just went into it. And I think this goes beyond even acting and comedy, but just the difference in knowing your quality of life day to day when you are chasing after your passion or doing something you're passionate about versus just kind of going through the motions because it's easy. It's indescribable because you're no longer just kind of, you kind of feel like you're just like, okay, whatever, like I'm just doing. But when you're like, I'm doing something because I have this plan, or I'm doing what I know I love, it just feels so much better. And I guess I say that to say that anyone listening to this should try and do it, especially if like, if you're younger. I think when we're young, we put these arbitrary things, like, especially when we're like, by 30, I need to be doing this.
Right.
Boy, when you are 30, there's still so much life, and there's so much or by this or by that. I think, if you, no matter where you are in life, if you start to chase after your passion and make your quality of life better in a way that doesn't, put you in a position of, that of hardship. Like, this isn't to say like you need to quit your job immediately. Like, I quit my job when I had to. Like, literally, I was calling in sick for auditions. I got to the point where I got suspended from work, and it was like, you cannot call off sick. And then I booked a short film that needed to shoot for a week, and then I was going to New York to perform for DCM. So that was like 2 weeks in a row. I needed a week off, and I exhausted all my PTO, and I already was suspended. So I was like, I think I'm going to have to quit this full-time job and do a part-time because I'm finally starting to have the momentum that I think is necessary. And that's not to say that along the way there weren't bumps or jobs I had to pick up that, just to make sure bills were paid. But at the end of the day, I said this before, I'll say it again, and it truly is true. At my brokest, when I was going after what I wanted to go after, still, I was like, this feels better than when I was like having a salary and just was kind of miserable because I didn't know what I was going to do.
And this was after you had already moved to LA and just.
Oh yeah, because Hollywood is a slow moving beast, and it's really just like having the skills and experience necessary with the opportunity. And sometimes that opportunity might not line up as fast as you need it to. So it is all about just kind of like being able to like work on the fly, change the plan up, make stuff happen. There was one time it was good. Funds got low. I had to start working at a a telemarketing place
Oh,
for a bit.
okay.
And it was pretty much through the Christmas. I think I only worked like 2 months because I was like, as soon as I book a commercial, I'm out of here because that'll carry me. And sure enough, I was there, and then I booked a commercial, and I was like, and I even once again, I still tried to keep it. I was like, hey, I need this day off to shoot the commercial. They're like, no, and I was like, well, I'm gonna take it off anyway. And they was like, then we'll have to let you go. And I was like, oh no, you don't have to. I'll just quit. And I quit, and I walked out because I was like, this is just my survival job,
Right.
And this is what I'm here for. So,
And then what year was this when you moved out to L.A.?
well, I'm in LA born and raised.
Oh, okay.
So when
Or
I moved to
back, I
LA,
guess.
I specifically, so I grew up in Compton.
Yeah.
Then I was in Downey High. We moved to Downey proper when I was in 10th grade. And then I was there till about senior year. And then senior year, I moved in with my mom in Long Beach. And then I was in Long Beach till I moved in with the ex, who actually was the catalyst for me in Orange County. I was in Garden Grove for a year.
Oh, okay.
And she was an actor too, so she was like, let's do the LA.
Yeah.
And we both moved to LA until we broke up and had to move out that place.
Yeah. Well, because I was just thinking, obviously, the way we consume content is very different from back early 2000s to today. Do you think, I don't want to say you would have, hit the scene a lot faster, but do you think there would have been a huge shift in your career had how we consume content today been the same back then?
And that's a really good question, because I don't know. Like I don't know, because I think there's facets of like the old quote unquote world that I think has helped me, but there is a way. It's easier to stand out now.
Yeah.
And what has helped me has been collaborating with people who are type A, and I'm a type B person, and that's why I say that, because I was internet savvy. I had like a video which was a parody of those guys who were humping the ottoman, and as a fluke, me and my buddy did a video where we were pretending to be them humping the chair, and it had a bunch of momentum on YouTube. It was like we were like ranked on YouTube higher than Annie Milonakis, and all my friends were like, "What are you gonna do next?" And I was like, "I don't know." Like I didn't ever think to like, maybe I should sit down and think of something else to do, or do more sketches, or like it just didn't. So I see myself, if I had this same way to consume content back then, being in the same position where I'm just like, I'm waiting till somebody else who wants to put it together just asks me to be in it,
Right.
because I'm better. But then you have things like Twitch, which is why I love Twitch so much, where you can just do it. So yeah, but I do think it is good, this new, because for two reasons. One, as like a consumer, you just have so many options.
Yeah.
You can really hunt down and find like content that applies to you and that vibes with you. And I think as a creator, you have all these ways to stand out. I constantly think of, and it's kind of one of the main reasons I started writing, was Tina Fey. I forget which interview, but she talked about how her first movie role was Mean Girls, which was a movie she wrote.
Yeah.
And she said, if I would have waited for Hollywood to decide I was a movie ready actress, that day may have never come. But I was able to make the decision for myself by making my own movie and putting myself in it. And I think about that often. And I think that's the same way with content creation. I think a lot of times too, I'll get a lot of folks who's like, oh, you do stuff with Achievement Hunter, or you do stuff with, Smosh, you do stuff with this internet channel I watch. How did you get them to notice you? And I was like, oh, it's because I was doing it.
Yeah.
And they were like, hey, you want to do that over here? And I was like, yeah. Like that's truly, there's no secret to it. I mean, even, you have, Black Crystal and Kai and Blizz, who are all like content creators in their own right. And now they get to do it, with such a large, wonderful company that can help them just even amplify their voice.
Yeah.
But it all started because they laid the groundwork on their own. So I think that's the easiest thing is like instead of like waiting to be plucked from a sea of a bunch of people who want to do it, stand out on your own with your own content. And that I'm not saying that it's easy. I mean, we're just in an age where a lot of people are creating content, and there are sites, cough cough Twitch, that make it hard to be discovered. So you just gotta keep doing it, and you just gotta try collaborating and try and collaborate laterally. You know, I think you get like lots of folks who are like, if I collaborate with this big creator, they're gonna be able that their fans are gonna come. And it's like, nah, 9 times out of 10 it doesn't work that way. Right. It was like you know, sometimes you might get a little something, but it really is, for it to work, it has to be, you know, friends who are like collaborating. So like if this big creator is collaborating with a friend, sure, eventually their, you know, community is going to start taking part in theirs. But if you're asking favors, it's never going to happen through a favor. It's going to happen through a relationship built.
So you're saying I need to stop messaging Drake to promote my Twitch?
Actually, I think if Drake promoted your Twitch, it'd be that's the one instance. If you can get Drake, Harry Styles, you know, Billie Eilish, yeah, they'll you'll get some folks.
Well, and you know, just kind of again, you know, thinking about the question that I asked, because it's a wonderful question. Humble brag. No, it's just amazing the fact that, you know, just kind of thinking about it. You probably wouldn't have that discipline that you have now, obviously, because you went through everything and you went through the modes. And just thinking about content creators today, they don't have that kind of structure, that hustle. It's all just in front of them, so they're like, hey. So
yeah, it truly makes it harder, oddly enough, because whether it be for your own personal YouTube or Twitch, or whether it be walking on stage, there's still that first jump you have to make to do it. And it's very hard. It's very easy to get caught up in the planning of it. When I was young, I wanted to like record like raps, and I downloaded all these beats. I made like a MySpace music for it. I made the logo. I spoke to other kids rapping at my school, and I signed them to my like, you know, record label, Mastermind Records, and I did all these snippet previews. I had my buddy like sing a cappella, then I uploaded that. I was uploading beats being like, these were the songs I could rap to, but I never rapped on a single track. Until this day, there's never been a song that I rapped on when I wanted to, because I just kept planning and never doing, and kept, you know, delaying it, and kept just making such a mess, which is why like sometimes you'll see someone post something or upload a song and it sounds very dirty. It sounds like they don't have all the right equipment, but it's up. And that's honestly more important than like trying to plan and have it perfect, because you can always delete your earlier stuff.
Right.
You know, like if you know all these old videos of Ninja back, he wasn't as polished with
back
the
when
hair.
he was Tyler Blevins.
Yeah, when he was Tyler Blevins, the Halo player. You know, he didn't have that polish, but he had the room to grow. Like, you know, the internet loves a rebrand. Like they get excited for it. So I think the most important thing you could do is do, and not get too caught up in the planning.
Right. Okay. Is there another facet that you would like to, you know, do? You know, again, like TV and video games, all that stuff. Like, is there something else that you would like to just like, oh, if I could get into that?
Oh man,
area.
I mean, there's two that speak out that kind of pop out to me, because I mean, if we you know, if you don't know me, we can go into all the facets. So like let's do it. All right. So I've TV writing. And TV writing, I'm going to loop in screenwriting, because even though there's nothing on wax, I will say there's stuff in the mix. So TV and screenwriting. We have tabletop writing that I've done on. Have you know, done video game writing with Apex, acting, podcasting. Have done audio dramas, have you know, VO, hosting, stand-up, improv. So out of all those facets, I do think I would like to tap into music. Last year I dropped a song, and once again the ball's back in my court, and it's all this overplanning. But truly, luckily this time, It isn't over planning. It is just genuinely being too busy. And what happens when you're too busy is you prioritize the things that are getting you money, and like the creative things you want to do for fun kind of take a back seat. And that's kind of where we are with that. And I think another thing is I do think I would love to like write a play. Just because it just seems like another medium that I haven't done. And that's what's been fun about all the like facets, like storytelling in video games versus storytelling in TV versus storytelling in TTRPG versus like storytelling in a prose, are just so many ways to tell a story, and you can do different things with all those mediums. So I'd be curious to see how it'd feel kind of finding a way to explore that medium.
Oh no, that I think that'd be a wonderful medium. It's something that I don't hear a lot of just like, I want to write a play. My girlfriend is super into theater and things like that, so I'm into that, not into that world, but I'm there. But just kind of having writing in all these different mediums. Is there ever a time where you're writing and you like you're working on this Apex or the tabletop or whatever, and you're just thinking of other things for another project that you're like, this would be good in my stand up or this
all the time. There's so many times where like you might pitch something that doesn't work for that, and you're like, oh man, okay, then maybe I could use it for that, and et cetera, et cetera. But no, that happens so often. What's more fun is when it synergizes, because like on At Midnight, you're just pitching jokes all day. So if a joke didn't work, I would just like pocket it and just use it on stage.
I'm going to make this joke work.
Well, because lots of times it'll be like, oh no, we don't think it works for this, and I was like, but it'll work for me.
There we go. And for the people at home who would like to keep up with everything you do, follow you online, just stuff like that, where can they find you?
Ify Nwadiwe on Twitter and Instagram, and that's how you'll be tapped in into everything I'm doing.
There we go. Ify, thank you so much for chatting with me. It's a huge pleasure. Anytime you want to come back, just say the word.
All right, sounds good. Thank you so much.
Thank you.